Hello everyone, Double V here from the Ministry of Wrestling, bringing you your weekly hit of TNA Total Non-Stop Wrestling action. The yellow lights are on, the red lights are on, which means it's time for us to do the go-home show for TNA Impact just before TNA Rebellion airs this weekend. Massive weekend of wrestling, huh? Woo! Few promotions having big pay-per-views on, but we're here to discuss TNA. This is the go-home show, and yeah, it opened big, literally. So Josh Alexander came down to the ring, and he was obviously there to remind all of us that, hey, I've got this last man standing match with a certain Hammerstone this coming weekend. And yeah, this is the third time the two of them are going to be encountering each other. This was basically a semi-squash match with FBI's Guido. I'll say this, I'm actually surprised it went as long as it did. I think, if I'm being critical, I actually think TNA missed the trick here, because if this had been a harder squash, it would have made Hammerstone that much more of a monster. I mean, he's already a beast, look at the guy, but it would have made him that much more of a monster. But yeah, semi-squash match. Hammerstone obviously went over here. We had a showcase of his power, which was really, really good. And it ended with him putting Guido in the torture rack. Guido taps out, and we go into the weekend. Now it's not clear who's gonna win this, which is actually, I'd say, well done TNA for putting those seeds of doubt in my mind. I don't know how to call this one. You could put either man over here, and it would make sense in my opinion. But we then cut to where's she gone? Yeah, we then cut to a phone cam segment with Jordynne Grace. Now, as we know, last week, Steph DeLander, SDL, and her had the contract signing. I covered that on last week's episode. Matt Cardona came out with her. Jordynne Grace gets put through a table last week. But then we find out during the week that Matt Cardona is injured. I don't know if that's a work or not. It's probably a work, but there are reports going around that the guy is legit injured. But here's the thing. So Jordynne Grace cuts this little promo in an Australian airport just before she boards a flight. And she's basically saying, like, hey, I'm coming with backup because I can't trust SDL and Matt Cardona to play nice, which again tells me that Matt's maybe not really injured, because why otherwise is Jordan bringing backup? But she's bringing back up, and I guess we're going to have a surprise guest, a surprise entry, a surprise appearance at Rebellion this weekend. Who that is, I don't know. Maybe Australia's the clue to that. For a real throwback, for banter, you could bring in Nathan Jones, but I think that might be a stretch too far. But up next, what do we have up next? We then, say his name, and he appears. I believe in Joe Hendry, my favorite man in wrestling at the moment. I love this guy. So Joe Hendry, he's in a go-home match against LSG, and he warms the crowd up for his match against Rich Swann at Rebellion, doing the typical Joe Hendry stuff. He gets them to applaud. He cuts a promo on Rich Swann and on AJ Francis. Throws a little Top Dollar reference in there, which is really cool to see. Not everyone in the crowd got that reference. I was surprised there wasn't more of a pop. There were a few, but not many. Anyway, Joe Hendry does his thing. He does a really, really, really cool finish here. So his standing ovation finisher, he did that with one arm on LSG, which was absolutely awesome. And Joe Hendry obviously picks up the win. This was basically a squash match. I would say even more of a squash match than the Hammerstone match. But it's just, Joe Hendry is so white hot at the moment. Like, he's as over as Swerve is in All Elite. He's as over as LA Knight is in WWE. Not maybe to the global wrestling audience, but to the promotion in which he's in. The relevancy is what I'm talking about. He is over as hell. I love this guy. Then we come on to the trios match. This was a really good match, actually. So we had GYV and Mustafa Ali came out. The grit your teeth. They did their usual shtick. But joining them was a very, very large man. Mr. Jake Something came out. But he was not alone. Jake Something was accompanied by Cody Deanna, and Rhino, the War Machine. Now, they're in Philadelphia. Obviously, they're going to bring Rhino out. He got the standing. He got the pop that he should have had. Rhino is a legend. He's a living legend at this point. Still have beef with him for the fact that he didn't show up to do a, signature signing with me and AJ when he was meant to. But that aside, Rhino's awesome. And we got all sorts of cool spots in this match. We got moments with Jake something doing Jake something stuff. Like the power show he put on display here was absolutely awesome. Then we had Rhino hitting a gore, which had previously been blocked earlier by GYV, but he hit the gore. The crowd popped, of course, because we get a gore. But the match effectively ended with Deanna pinned down. All the rest of the teams had spilled to the outside. Mustafa Ali, ever the opportunist, lands a 450. 1, 2, 3. Ali goes in. Now, it definitely continued this story that we're telling of how does a guy Ali size beat a guy Jake something size? Like, it's a good old David versus Goliath story, this one. Jake something's not beating Mustafa Ali with the highest of respect to him. But yeah, really, really good match. I suggest if you want, definitely a match you should go and track down if you want to see it. Just great tag team wrestling on display. How can it not be? Look at the talent in the ring, for goodness sake. And then after that, we cut to this backstage segment with Eric Young. Now, I really thought this was quite cool because instead of it being like a promo train or an interview, it was very much like a cinematic internal monologue. It really worked for me. Young was reflecting on the fact that, that he doesn't want to be that person again. But Frankie Kazarian has just pushed him too far. The madness is going to come out at Full Metal Mayhem. And yeah, Frankie Kazarian, be warned, at Rebellion, you may very well be in a lot of trouble, my man. Because I'm really looking forward to this Metal Mayhem match between Young and Kazarian. Hard to see Kaz going over here, but it could happen. If there was a steady pair of hands to do it, it would obviously be Eric Young. Okay, following that, what happened? We then got into some knockout tag team action because Decay's Rosemary came out against Spitfire's Jody Threat, friend of the channel, of course, Danny Luna, who we've done interviews with. You can check those out on the channel now. It's always good seeing Danny Luna on the channel. However, unfortunately, Jody Threat didn't really stand a hope in hell here. It's just like this was Rosemary. I'll go out on a limb now and say I think Rosemary is a monumentally underrated wrestler. I think she's got all the talent in the world. I love her presentation. She's really good on her feet. Like, her ring awareness is second to none. Tremendously underrated wrestler, Rosemary from Decay. And wouldn't you know, Rosemary gets the win here, unsurprisingly. But this match did what it needed to do. It continued to push Spitfire as, the underdog baby faces. It continued to make them look like the team that has to, even though they're holding gold, has to keep overcoming the odds, has to keep overcoming these unsurmountable odds. Little bit like the way Rev Pro present Michael Oku here in the UK indie scene. It's very much a similar vibe. But yeah, this did its job. You feel Spitfire are probably going to retain at Rebellion, but yeah, they are going to retain, actually. So this was a normal kind of, I win on the TV match, so I lose then on the pay-per-view match. So Spitfire, I believe, are going to retain. Then we got into the main event, because the main event was sensational. It was for the Tag Team Championships, and it was the Motor City Machine Guns against the System. Now, this is the System's year so far, man. They're just holding all the gold. Although I hate the way they haven't put gold on Alicia yet. Maybe that's going to happen while they're still holding. That would be great. This match was brilliant, man. It's these four guys in the ring. It would actually be physically impossible for them to have a bad match. Like, you can't have a bad tag team match with these four guys. It was great. It ebbed and flowed. There were some great spots. But, of course, as is so often the way with the System, that God damn, Alicia Edwards had to get involved. And Alicia Edwards, I'll say so many times, friend of the channel, Alicia Edwards, she had to get involved. She cost Motor City Machine Guns the match, holding Alex Shelley's hand. They do the double team spot on Chris Sabin. 1, 2, 3. They retain gold and they go on to Rebellion for a match against Speedball Mountain, which I, unfortunately for Speedball Mountain, because we love Trent Seven here on the channel, I unfortunately think, yeah, the system are not dropping gold anytime soon. So look out for them to win. Then came the big story beat of the episode, the final segment of the show. As I said, they retain, but then Nick Nemeth comes out, and man, he cuts before even getting into the ring. He goes out to the fans. He starts high-fiving everyone. Everyone's singing to his music. Nick, Nick, Nick. I was like, go on, mate. It's so nice to see Nick Nemeth being presented as a megastar, looking like a megastar, being received like a megastar. And the way he got into the crowd here, he was drinking beer. He had this contagious freaking smile on his face. You could this wasn't acting. This wasn't a work. This guy is just having the time of his life at the moment. He gets in the ring, starts cutting a promo. Philadelphia, that's just what I needed. But before he has a chance to say anything, big man Moose comes out to the ring. Now, what Moose did here was actually really cool, because he's been working with this whole "you've never beaten the system" thing, which, as wrestling puns go, because that's kind of the nature of wrestling, isn't it? It's like wrestlers have a catchphrase or a pun, and they always work that into their promos. It's cheap shtick, but it's wrestling. It works. This, I think, is one of the better ones. I really do think so, because the system doesn't just refer to Moose and his stable. Obviously, it refers to the fact that Dolph, as he was previously known, had all the has all the talent in the world. Every fan in the world knows how good, or was, Dolph Ziggler was. Ric Flair uses him as the benchmark of in-ring quality constantly, and that's one of the GOATs of wrestling, praising him. And yet, the system in this case that Moose is referring to is the creative engine at Stanton, the WWE creative engine, which, for reasons which most wrestling fans, doesn't matter what organization you're with, for reasons most wrestling fans never understand, Dolphy Boy Blue never got the push that we were all waiting for. And Moose has been saying this for the past few weeks. He can't beat the system. And then he added here, which I thought was a stroke of genius. He adds in, and on the rare occasions where they've given you the ball to run with, you fumbled it. You dropped the ball. You choked. You're a choke artist. Nemeth wasn't happy about this. And Moose cornered him. He was like, I've struck a nerve. And Nick turned around and went, yeah, you have actually. You've really struck a nerve here. And he cuts a fantastic promo. I am not Dolph Ziggler. You are not talking to that guy. You're talking to a guy who has found his passion, who has found his confidence. You're looking at the next heavyweight champion. And you know what this promo did? There were already seeds of doubt in my mind about who the hell wins this title match. All this did was double it down. And this is such an inspired piece of booking by TNA, because it is win-win. If you put the title on Nick Nemeth, you are going to please so many wrestling fans around the world, both in New Japan and TNA. Any fan of previously Dolph Ziggler, now Nick Nemeth, anyone who was a fan of this guy is going to be over the moon that he's finally holding a world title again. However, if you put the title on Moose, keep the title on Moose, it is not a bad thing. The system are the top stable in TNA at the moment. It just reaffirms how good they are. It just reaffirms how much of a monster Moose is. Damn, he beat Nick Nemeth? Okay, don't mess with this guy. And of course, Nick Nemeth is such a star that they're just going to build him up again. And if he doesn't win it now, he's not long for this world before he wins it eventually. How freaking refreshing isn't it going into a world title match where you can't say who's going to win? This isn't like, oh, there's 1% of doubt with one guy. Nah, this is 50-50. Either of these guys legitimately could win this, in my opinion. That's how I feel about it. I think this was a really, really solid go home show for TNA. It did what it had to do. It put the right people over. It planted the seeds of doubt when necessary. There was a few good promos, a few good backstage segments. TNA again continue to quietly go about their business. They don't need pipe bombs. They don't need scandalous news stories. They just need good, solid, dedicated wrestlers, and that's what we get every single week. I love this promo. I want to know what you guys think. What did you think of this episode of TNA Impact? Are you excited for Rebellion? What's your predictions for Rebellion? Let me know down in the comment section below. But as always, I bring the verisimilitude, the appearance of being real, that which is wrestling. I am Double V, the Viceroy of Verisimilitude, Nico Luro, and I will see you guys right here back on the channel again for my recap of TNA Rebellion once I've watched it next week. So bye-bye for now. See ya.